tangible progress versus incremental results. It's a constant tug of war, which the Detroit Tigers have engaged in since the twilight years of manager Jim Leland, when they were in contention to win it all. However, these are different times now, and Detroit has engaged in a methodical and careful rebuild, with their young pieces finally able to show some progress and promise. The team is hopefully ready to take the next step in their progression. However, they're in need of new leadership on the field and in the dugout after manager Ron Gardenhire decided to retire and focus on his health. So the question is, which direction will they go? Jake Riepma is a producer and update anchor for 97.1 The Ticket. He joined me this week to go over the Tigers' managerial options and to provide a progress report on the state of the franchise. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Hey Jake, if you're ready, we'll welcome you to the show, and we're excited to talk to you about some Tigers baseball this afternoon. So great to see you, and thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Kevin. It's really an honor, and I'm looking forward to it.
So, Jake, when we look at the state of the Tigers, before we dive into the state of the team, I'm just wondering if I can get your perspective on how things ended with manager Ron Gardenhire and his impact on the franchise during the 2.5 years that he was here.
Yeah, no doubt. I think a lot of it, Kevin, depends on the perspective you take. You know, if you want to look at just a snapshot of how it all ended, it certainly went downhill fast. I think there was a lot of excitement at the beginning of the 2020 season, and certainly I, for one, didn't expect them to be in the midst of a playoff race as long as they were. But it's just kind of about as fast as we did get excited about this Tigers team, it all kind of fell apart at the end. And of course, with Ron stepping down, it wasn't exactly the storybook ending we all had in mind. But bigger picture wise, I mean, you look what he did with this team, you know, the worst team in baseball a year ago. And 2020 certainly was a unique season for so many different reasons. But to have his team relevant, to have them a part of a playoff race the way he did, and to develop some individual players the way that he did, you know, you think of the Willie Castros, the Harold Castros, and guys that made significant improvements here in the 2020 season. I think there's a lot of positives, and depending on what happens moving forward, you know, if things go the way I hope they do, the way a lot of Tigers fans hope they do, I think you'll look at Ron Gardenhire as the man that started the rebuild and got this team moving in the right direction, and now it'll be up to whoever becomes the next full-time manager to get them over the hump.
Well, let's talk about that. What do you think they should be looking for in a new manager there, Jake?
Yeah, Kevin, it's exciting because there's the one side of the coin where you think, let's get an experienced veteran guy in here that knows what he's doing, that can get the most out of these players, that can connect with both young players and with veterans alike. Or you think about, you know, possibly going a little bit off the wall, maybe a little bit, and finding that hidden gem, that gem in the rough that maybe is looking to be discovered, and can give this team a spark, and identify with the players, the young players and veteran players. Like, you always want that from a coach, regardless of what, any sport really for that matter. But there's a lot of viable candidates out there that for me, as both as a fan and somebody that's in the business covering the team, it's an exciting time of the year. And I think this team does need a breath of fresh air. And I know we're going to get into some possible specific replacements, but I, for one, am hoping that they go outside of the organization and bring in somebody with a fresh perspective and a new outlook on the team. And I think that would bode well for the organization and hopefully breathe some life into them.
So you're not on the Lloyd McClendon bandwagon then, huh?
Yeah, that is correct. And all due respect to Lloyd, I think he did a good job as interim manager at the final couple of weeks there, and I think he has a spot in the organization and has a role to fill in whatever capacity that looks like. I just don't think it's as the manager of this team. I think there's been enough of a sample size with Lloyd McClendon as a Major League Baseball manager that hasn't necessarily bode well, and he hasn't been successful. You know, the two different stints as manager, and I just think this team is ready for some new blood, if you will, and a fresh face and someone to kind of get this organization over the hump and not necessarily bring more of the same, which I think, unfortunately, to no fault of Lloyd, but he's been in the organization for as long as he has, that he wouldn't necessarily be able to provide that fresh face, that new perspective, and that new sense of energy that somebody coming from outside the organization could.
Now let's talk specific names. When you look at the early list for the Tigers, you see names like Don Kelly, possibly AJ Hinch, and the Dodgers first base coach. So, can you tell me what specific names you're hoping they may interview, and who do you hope ultimately gets the gig?
Yeah, I think another name to keep your eye on is Josh Paul. You know, he served as Brad Ausmus's bench coach, so he's familiar with the organization. And then, of course, the names that you mentioned with AJ Hinch. And I would love Donnie Kelly Baby to have an opportunity to interview. I don't know what he could necessarily bring. It would be, you know, that would be kind of an off the wall hire with him being a first time manager. But why not? You know, I, for one, think his connection to the organization, the people in Detroit absolutely love him. I think he can connect with young players, and that I think in a lot of this, especially at the professional level, so much of it is getting the most out of your guys by having them play for you. And I think players would absolutely run through a wall for Donnie Kelly Baby, especially given his connection with Detroit. And then there's some of the more controversial ones, you know, AJ Hinch, of course, his checkered past with the Astros, at the forefront of arguably one of the biggest cheating scandals in Major League Baseball. And there's still some fresh wounds from that. So I think that would definitely take some creative public relations and kind of navigating those waters. And the same goes for Alex Cora, who's another brilliant mind in baseball. He was the bench coach for the Astros in that 2017 World Series team. I think he has a lot to bring to the table, as does AJ Hinch. You know, AJ Hinch was a catcher as a player, and they always say catchers make the best managers. And AJ Hinch is pro analytics, which we know the way the game is going in that sense. I think both AJ Hinch and Alex Cora make compelling cases to be managers. And if the Tigers aren't going to be the ones to hire them and to take a shot on, again, the controversial hire, I think other Major League Baseball teams will. So it's a matter of kind of sucking it up and taking that hit on the PR side of things, but still getting the best manager. And you also have to, and I think this will come out in the interview process. You know, I'm not in those rooms to know how remorseful they truly are. I can only go on, you know, the public perception. And it seems like both AJ Hinch and Alex Cora are remorseful. They understand the scandal that they were involved in, and you would hope that they've learned from the past mistakes and would want to rewrite that legacy and get back to the glory days of baseball when they're winning World Series, but doing it the right way. So I, for one, wouldn't mind taking a chance on either AJ Hinch or Alex Cora and trying to turn the page for them as managers here moving forward with the Tigers.
Now, when we look at the Tigers as an organization, this is obviously a big offseason for General Manager Al Avila. He'll get a shot to hire his third manager, which doesn't happen that often in sports. So, can you tell me about the importance of the offseason for Al Avila and sort of the direction you think he's taking the franchise?
Oh yeah, I think I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's make or break. Like you said, you alluded to it. I mean, this will be his third hire, and you just don't see that often in general manager tenures. And especially in right, wrong, or indifferent, I think it's what you want if you're Al Avila. But because of the progress that they made in 2020, I mean, think back to the perception of Avila in 2019. There was not a lot of Detroit Tiger fans that were believers in Al Avila. You know, there was kind of the debacle with how he handled the Nick Castellanos trade ordeal and saying we can't get anything for him. You know, he kind of didn't do a good job of playing his poker hand. It seemed like other organizations in Major League Baseball were kind of getting the best of Al Avila, and the trades, of course, for the big names like Verlander. It seemed like those prospects that we were getting in return weren't working out. But now all of a sudden, because you saw some promise in 2020, and I don't want to speak for fans as a whole or for the media as a whole, but it seems like he's bought himself a little bit of time. And because you've seen a little sliver of potential, you're still willing to give the Al Avila and his regime another chance, maybe one more year. But I do think this is kind of a make or break year in terms of what this Tigers team can do, and if they can build off of the success they had at the beginning portion of the 2020 season. And there's a lot of unpredictable factors in it as well. I mean, the 2020 season, shortened season, expanded playoffs, all of that. You know, the schedule was a little bit different. 2021 will have a, hopefully, you know, knock on wood, it's up in the air for everybody, but hopefully we'll have a little bit more of a normal feel to it. You know, you'll play that full schedule, and all in all hopes again that Al Avila and this organization can make a statement and have this Tigers organization moving in a positive direction.
And let's talk about pitching for a second, because obviously the Tigers have invested a lot into their young pitching prospects. So I'm wondering your thoughts on how big of a factor that will be when they select their next manager.
Oh yeah, it's huge. I mean, there's no secrets about it. Pitching is what wins. Good hitting, good pitching beats good hitting every time, and that's what this organization was built around. Here moving forward with the draft capital they spent, of course, on Casey Mize and the exciting prospects that are hopefully ready to take that next step. I know we didn't love what we saw from Casey Mize in 2020, but Spencer Turnbull's a guy that at times showed that he can be a number one or number two in this league. And I'm not ready to give up on Matthew Boyd, although a lot of people are. But that foundation of the pitching rotation, I think, is going to be the identity of this 2021 Tigers team, and rightfully so. I mean, the names go on and on. You know, well, Michael Fulmer, maybe his best days might be behind him, but he was still the 2016 Rookie of the Year. Hopefully he showed that he can stay healthy, and maybe his role isn't as a starting pitcher, but he can contribute to a healthy pitching staff and that can have some success. And again, Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal and Matthew Boyd and Spencer Turnbull, and the list can go on and on about guys that are going to lead this team and what this team is going to be built upon. And that's going to be the foundation of your Detroit Tigers. And I think it's a winning foundation. So in the sense of that becoming the face of this organization, I'm all for it. And I think most managers, if they had the opportunity to step in a situation with a number one overall draft pick like Casey Mize ready to emerge at the big leagues and take that next step, and then of course the same with the same can be said about Tariq Skubal and the signs of promise that he showed this year, and the rest of that Tigers pitching staff. I think if you ask the potential candidates, they would be grinning from ear to ear at the thought of taking over such a promising Tigers pitching staff from top to bottom.
And my final question for you has to do with what has you most excited about the future of the organization, and what do you think we learned the most during this past season about the Tigers?
Yeah, I think. Well, I'll start with what we learned. I think we learned that there are some big league players that were on that roster that in 2019 that looked abysmal from time to time, and they made such a positive step in 2020. Guys like Willie Castro, Harold Castro, and Jamer Candelario. They emerged as some big league players that you can win with, and you start to get those pieces of the puzzle starting to take form. And when you saw just a little bit of that glimpse in 2020, that got me excited as somebody that has been, following this team from both as a fan and of course covering them for the 97 won the ticket, and just the fact that they can be a team now that isn't rebuilding, that has more expectations than just let's see some some moves in a positive direction, in the right direction, that taking kind of transferring over from rebuilding to let's try to make the playoffs, let's try to make some noise in our division. Let's not just be looking for little positive glimpse of hope from here and there. Let's actually be a big league team that can do some damage both in the division and moving forward into the postseason. And it's kind of that fine line between wishful thinking and getting enough substance to be able to back up what you're saying, because we're all hoping for it. I mean, the city of Detroit is as desperate for a winning team as any city. I mean, not even just baseball, which of course I
In
know
any
we'll
sport,
talk.
you're right.
Yeah, we'll talk about, and great, we could talk for hours about that. But both this Tigers franchise is a proud organization. There's a lot of history. It's a prestigious franchise that it's good for baseball when the Tigers are good, and I desperately hope that they're ready to make that transition from rebuilding to making some noise and being a serious contender.
Hey, Jake, we want to thank you for a couple of minutes talking about the Tigers managerial search and the state of the team. Always great to see you, and thanks for a few minutes, buddy.
Thank you, Kevin. A lot of fun. All the best to you. I really appreciate it.